Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. Glass shattered against the far wall of the dressing room. The sound swallowed instantly by the roaring applause of 50,000 fans screaming his name from the stadium outside. Do not walk away from me when I am speaking to you, Julian. The voice that usually crooned ballads capable of bringing nations to tears was now ragged, edged with a dangerous, raw fury. But Julian didn't stop. He kept his hand on the cold brass of the doorknob, his knuckles white, his reflection in the vanity mirror showing a man who looked like he was bleeding out from the inside. "There is nothing left to say, Lysander," Julian said, his voice terrifyingly calm amidst the chaos of the spilled champagne and broken flutes. "You just announced your engagement to her on live television. The entire world is celebrating the union of the king and queen of pop. I'm just the ghostwriter who's supposed to disappear into the woodwork. It was a script." "It's all a script," Lysander lunged, crossing the luxurious suite in 2 strides. He slammed his hand against the door above Julian's head, effectively caging him in. The smell of expensive stage makeup, sweat, and the cloying scent of her perfume on Lysander's collar assaulted Julian's senses. Lysander's chest heaved, his sequined black jacket glittering under the harsh vanity lights. "You know why I have to do this. You know what Sterling holds over us. I know you chose the crown," Julian whispered, finally looking up. His dark eyes, usually so warm when they looked at the star, were now abyssal pools of resignation. "And I am done being the dirty little secret you keep in the dark while you parade her in the sun." The weeks following the announcement of the century were a blur of suffocating neon and flashbulbs. The narrative was perfect. Lysander Thorne, the untouchable deity of the music industry, and Alara, the nation's sweetheart, were the fairy tale everyone wanted. Every billboard, every news feed, every talk show dissected their love story, a story that Julian had written. Literally written. Julian sat in the dim light of the recording studio, the soundproofing foam on the walls making the silence heavy. He pressed play on the mixing board. Lysander's voice filled the room, singing the bridge of Eclipse. Asterisk. "I hide you in the shadow of my heart, / terrified the light will tear us apart." Asterisk. The critics called it a romantic ode to Alara, a testament to how precious she was to him. The fans swooned over the lyrics, analyzing them for clues about their wedding date. Only 2 people in the world knew the truth. Julian had written those lyrics at 3 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday, watching Lysander sleep in their shared, secret bed, terrified that the morning sun would eventually expose them and burn everything to the ground. "It's a beautiful lie, isn't it?" Julian spun around in his swivel chair. Standing in the doorway of the studio was CEO Sterling. The man was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than Julian's childhood home. He held a lit cigar, though smoking was strictly prohibited near the equipment. "Mr. Sterling," Julian said, his voice stiff. "I'm working." "You're sulking," Sterling corrected, walking into the room and inspecting the platinum records hanging on the wall. "You should be proud, Julian. Your song is #1 in 20 countries. You're making me a lot of money." "I'm fulfilling my contract," Julian replied, turning back to the console. "About that," Sterling said, his tone shifting from casual to predatory. He dropped a manila folder onto the mixing desk. It landed with a heavy thud. "Alara is complaining. She says Lysander is distant, cold. She needs the public to believe the passion is real. And Lysander listens to nobody but you." Julian laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "You want me to coach your fake girlfriend on how to seduce him? I want you to convince Lysander to play his part," Sterling hissed, leaning in, the smoke from his cigar curling around Julian's face. "Because if he doesn't, if he cracks, if he tries to pull one of his rebellious stunts." I released the photos from the Jeju trip, and we both know that in this conservative society, Lysander's career won't just end. He will be obliterated. And you? You'll be the predator who corrupted the golden boy. Julian's hands clenched into fists on his lap. The Jeju trip. 3 years ago, before the fame became suffocating, they had stolen a weekend away. They had been careless. They had kissed on a balcony. "Leave him out of this conversation," Julian said, his voice low. "Then do your job. Make him love her. Or at least, make him act like it." The charity gala at the Grand Hotel was the apex of the social season. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling, casting a fractured light over the sea of velvet, silk, and diamonds. It was a masquerade theme. How fitting. Julian stood by the bar, nursing a whiskey he didn't want. He wore a simple black suit and a half-mask that covered the scarred tissue near his left eye, a souvenir from a car accident years ago that had ended his own idle aspirations and relegated him to the shadows of production. Across the room, the crowd parted. Lysander had arrived. He was breathtaking. He wore a white suit with gold embroidery, a striking contrast to the sea of black tuxedos. On his arm was Alara, draped in red chiffon, smiling that perfect, practiced smile. They looked like royalty. They looked like they belonged together. Julian felt a physical pain in his chest, a sharp twist of jealousy and longing that made it hard to breathe. He turned away, signaling the bartender for another drink, when he felt a heavy hand on his shoulder. Well, if it isn't the broken songbird. Julian stiffened. He knew that voice. Minho, a rival producer from a competing agency, known for his sleazy tactics and inability to take no for an answer. Not tonight. Minho, Julian muttered, shaking the hand off. Come on, don't be like that. Minho slurred, clearly intoxicated. He crowded Julian against the mahogany bar. I heard rumors, that you and the prince aren't just colleagues. That you're his pet. Julian's blood ran cold. You're drunk. Get away from me. Is that why he keeps you around? Minho sneered, his hand dropping lower, grazing Julian's hip. Because you're obedient? I could use a pet like you. Sterling pays well, but I can pay better for a warm body. Julian shoved him hard. Minho stumbled back, knocking into a waiter. A tray of glasses crashed to the floor. The sound cut through the murmuring crowd like a gunshot. Suddenly, the ballroom went silent. All eyes turned to the bar. Minho straightened his jacket, his face twisting into an ugly snarl. You touch me again, you cripple, and I'll. You'll do what? The voice was low, baritone, and vibrated with lethal intent. The crowd parted again, but this time in fear. Lysander was walking toward them. He had left Alara standing in the center of the room. His pace was slow, predatory. The Prince of Pop mask was gone. In its place was the face of a man ready to commit murder. Lysander, don't. Julian whispered, panic seizing his throat. The cameras. Lysander ignored him. He stopped inches from Minho, towering over the other producer. Finish that sentence. What will you do to him? Minho laughed nervously, glancing around at the onlookers. Relax, Thorne. Just having a little chat with your staff. Though, I was just asking how much it costs to rent him for the night. Since you're busy with Alara, I figured. The punch was so fast the cameras barely caught it. 1 second Minho was standing. The next, he was on the floor, blood pouring from a broken nose, staining the pristine marble. The room erupted in gasps and screams. Flashes blinded them. Lysander didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the cameras. He didn't look at Alara, who was staring in horror. He reached down, grabbed Julian's wrist, and pulled him close, shielding him with his body from the onslaught of lenses. We're leaving, Lysander growled. You just destroyed your career, Julian hissed, stumbling as Lysander dragged him toward the exit. Sterling will kill you. Let him try, Lysander spat, kicking the ballroom doors open. The drive back to Lysander's penthouse was conducted in a terrifying silence. Lysander drove the sports car like he was fleeing a war zone, weaving through the late-night traffic of Neo-Seoul at breakneck speeds. When they arrived at the private garage, Lysander didn't wait for the elevator. He dragged Julian up the fire stairs, 3 flights, bursting into the penthouse and locking the reinforced steel door behind them. Only then did he let go. Julian rubbed his bruising wrist. Are you insane? You hit a major industry executive in front of the entire press corps. The headlines tomorrow. I don't care about the headlines. Lysander roared, ripping off his white jacket and throwing it to the floor. He tore at his tie, buttons popping and scattering like hail. Did you hear what he said to you? Did you think I was going to stand there and watch him touch you? You have a fiancé. Julian shouted back, the dam finally breaking. Tears pricked his eyes. You have an image. You have millions of fans who think you're a god. You can't just throw it all away for me. You are the only thing that is real. Lysander crossed the room, grabbing Julian by the shoulders and slamming him against the wall, not in violence, but in desperation. His forehead rested against Julian's, his breathing jagged. The music, the fame, the money, Alara. It's all dust. It's all noise. You are the music, Julian. You always have been. Sterling has the photos. Julian choked out, a tear finally escaping the mask. He'll ruin you. Let him release them, Lysander whispered, his hands trembling as they cupped Julian's face. Let them see. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of writing love songs to a ghost when the man I love is standing right in front of me. You'll lose everything. I'll lose nothing if I have you. Lysander kissed him then. It wasn't the chaste, staged kiss of a drama. It was hungry, possessive, and terrified. It tasted of blood from a split lip and the salt of tears. It was a reclaiming. Julian felt his resistance crumble. He had spent years building walls to protect Lysander from the truth of their nature, but Lysander had just taken a sledgehammer to them. They stumbled backward, tangled in limbs and frantic touches, collapsing onto the expansive leather sofa. The city lights of Neo-Soul flickered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bearing witness to the only performance that mattered. The morning sun was merciless. It flooded the penthouse, illuminating the scattered clothes and the empty bottles of water. Julian woke up to the sound of a phone ringing. Not ringing, screaming. It was the landline. The cell phones had been turned off hours ago. He sat up, the silk sheet pooling at his waist. Lysander was already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the skyline. He held the receiver to his ear. Julian held his breath. This was it. The end. Lysander listened for a long moment. Then, he spoke, his voice calm, deep, and utterly sovereign. Go ahead, Sterling. Release them. Upload every single photo you have. A pause. No, I won't be apologizing. And Alara can keep the engagement ring as a severance package. Another pause, longer this time. Lysander's lips quirked into a dark smirk. Actually, you might want to check your email before you threaten me again. I've sent over a file. It's a recording of you admitting to embezzling funds from the artist pension scheme. Julian recorded it months ago in the studio. He's very good at audio engineering, remember? Julian's eyes widened. He hadn't recorded that. Lysander looked over his shoulder at Julian and winked. It was a bluff. A magnificent, high-stakes bluff. So, Lysander continued into the phone. Here is the new deal. You announced that Alara and I have mutually parted ways due to creative differences. You bury the assault story as protecting a staff member from harassment. And Julian and I? We're taking a sabbatical. If a single photo of Jeju leaks, the embezzlement recording goes to the authorities. Lysander slammed the phone down onto the receiver. The echo rang through the penthouse. He turned to Julian, the morning light catching the sharp angle of his jaw and the softness in his eyes. You didn't record him, Julian whispered. No, Lysander said, crawling back onto the bed, moving over Julian like a predator protecting its mate. But Sterling is a thief, and thieves are always paranoid. He won't risk it. And if he does, then we burn together, Lysander said, brushing a strand of hair from Julian's eyes. But I think he'll fold. He loves his money more than he hates us. Julian looked up at the man who had been his rival, his tormentor, his muse, and his lover. The world outside was likely on fire. The internet was melting down. The paparazzi were probably swarming the lobby downstairs. But in here, high above the noise, there was only the steady beat of two hearts that had finally synchronized. So, Julian murmured, tracing the line of Lysander's lower lip. No more fake girlfriends. No more, Lysander promised, leaning down to seal the vow. From now on, the only person I perform for is you. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Lysander destroy his career to save his heart, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a lover who hid you in the dark to keep you safe? Or is a secret love no love at all? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Lysander, standing, wearing unbuttoned white suit shirt, disheveled silver hair, intense protective expression, sharp jawline, holding man 2's face, dominant pose. Man 2, Julian, sitting on luxury leather sofa. Looking up, dark hair messy. Wearing black silk shirt falling off shoulder. Vulnerable but relieved expression, flushed skin. Background is a high-end penthouse living room at night. City skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Dramatic blue and gold lighting. Scattered clothes on floor. Cinematic composition. Intimacy. Emotional atmosphere. Sharp focus. Intricate details.